What is up, guys? DT Ninja here to give you guys my RuroKen Hokkaido Arc Chapter 35 review. Okay, guys, this chapter of Kenshin was freaking awesome. Yo, so we got three different fronts. We got Otaru, we got Hakodate, and of course we got Sapporo, which has Saito and Nagakura facing off against the masked skull man, who's, Hyobe, who's fighting them currently in Sapporo. So that was really cool. We got Ono's death, which was pretty sad. It also revealed some things, so that was really neat. We got Kaoru, and she has a new house. That was interesting. The Juppongatana come back. We got Byakuya awakening, so he's awake now. So we got a lot of things in this chapter to talk about, so really good stuff. This is my latest illustration. This is actually a clear file of Sanosuke and Kenshin. Really cool stuff from the Hokkaido arc, best friends back to back. Really cool. It also has some illustrations on the back, so really cool. Yesterday I just got this. This is an illustration of Kaoru Dono, and she is as Netsuko. You can see her with the bamboo she has in her mouth. This is an unknown artist that I bought from in Japan, and she was very thankful. And yeah, I thought it was really cool. It's absolutely adorable, so I wanted to add it to my Kenshin collection. Alright guys, let's get to the review. So, wow, this chapter, there's a lot to discuss. Okay, the first thing is famous places. Okay, in the first page, we get the idea that we're going to three different fronts. That's what I love about it. But in that first page, we see actual places you can visit, famous places. The first one is Otaru Harbor. Otaru Harbor, where they're fishing for the Pacific, fish, the famous fish. So that was interesting. So we know we're going to start in Otaru, and that's where we leave off with Ono and Sanosuke. So that was pretty cool. I'm going to show you a picture of Otaru because I've been there and it's beautiful. So take a look. Alright guys, so as you can see, that is Otaru. It's really neat. That is kind of the symbol of Otaru too, the canal. It's really beautiful. It leads out into the harbor, so definitely check that out if you've ever had a chance to go there when you get a chance. So it's really beautiful. It is a port town, so there are a lot of things fish related. Yeah, so pretty cool. Okay, the next one is Goryokaku. Now, I've never been there, but I've seen it from Mount Hakodate, because I've been to Mount Hakodate. I've been to the summit of Mount Hakodate, so it's very beautiful. Yeah, so definitely check out Goryokaku right here. Alright guys, very green, right? Very cool. But yeah, in this chapter we see that image of Goryokaku, so it gives us an idea, oh, we're going to not only go to Hakodate, but we're going to go to Goryokaku, which means we're probably going to get more of the Kenkaku-heki, which is really awesome because Byakuya wakes up, right? That's really cool. And then the last one is Sapporo, which is the clock tower in Sapporo. It's a very famous clock tower. It's basically behind the famous tower. So, really cool stuff, and that is where Saito and Nagakura are fighting. So, page 1 has that clock tower. And then on page 27, it's the same clock tower. So you get kind of a transition, and we do get an idea of where we're heading. I like that. I like how we get an idea of where we're heading even before we start reading. So that was really cool. Oh, and here's Sapporo's clock tower. Alright guys, so really cool. I like how, he adapts these real life places and puts them in the manga. It gives us that, kind of realism to the story. So really cool. Okay, the next one. Kenkaku-heki main headquarters. This is the question that Sanosuke asked Ono. Now, Ono doesn't want to die in vain. He says, if there's anything you want to know, ask me. So Sanosuke asks him where the headquarters for Kenkaku-heki are. He says, I don't know. And like Sanosuke, how do you not know? That's pretty crazy, right? So we learn that when they're children, they basically are, kind of blind to the idea of where they are and the location. They're even blindfolded once they're old enough to leave the base. So they have no idea where they are. That's pretty nuts if you think about it. And then they're training throughout Hokkaido, all these different places, and it's pretty harsh. And if they're strong enough, they become members, they become spies, or they become, actual Kenkaku-heki. So very interesting, but also eye-opening. Now, the one thing he mentions is that the main base is only known by the commanders. Now, it's not just that, but it's that there's the 5 commanders that are shown, because every time they've shown the words, the commanders of the Kenkaku-heki, only 5 have been shown. You got, Hyobei, the skull. We see him in this chapter. He's fighting against Saito and Nagakura. You got all the members. Reisen, you got Fuyukai, you got, who else? Shimonji, and of course Kanzato in the middle. These are the 5 that are shown. Now, where's Byakuya? Okay, we know Byakuya got in trouble, right? He basically got himself captured to basically kind of stand off, right? He got what they wanted. They got the occupation of Mount Hakodate. They're on top. They have no way of, losing in that matter. But he kind of is diplomatic in a way. He kind of just lets himself get captured. So he's away. But why isn't he mentioned in this chapter? Okay, so he's not shown as one of the commanders. Is it just showing this same scene? I have to wonder. Or is there something else there? Is there mistrust of Byakuya in the first place? Of him revealing the secret? Because he told Saito and Kenshin where the 2, experimental battles were, Otaru and Sapporo. So he leaked it out to them after fighting. So it does make you wonder if there is mistrust there. So Byakuya is not shown there or there. And he's also talked about by those commanders. They talk about him. And even Master Shokun, their grand leader, also mentions Byakuya as, the eccentric. That's what she calls him, the eccentric. So she says he's a troublemaker. So it's interesting. So there might be mistrust there. I just noticed it. Also, the other commander is also missing. This guy. He basically uses his hands and pushes everything back. Like there's like wind coming out. So he has some serious power, but he's also the commander of that attack squad, but he's not shown or mentioned in both of those chapters, 15 and this chapter. So I also noticed it. Is there mistrust with those 2 commanders? Were they added later? Was Byakuya added later, and that might be the reason? I just noticed it, but yeah, that's an interesting thing to think about. Okay. The next thing, Ono's last request. Now, Ono's last request, it refers to Sanosuke asking him if, there's anything that you want me to tell your family. He even says, I'm sure you have family. You want me to tell them your last words, something you would like to pass on to them. And what's interesting about this, he goes on, he says, you have parents, you have a wife, you have a kid. He goes on to say all this family, and Ono's eyes look kind of shocked, almost like, he's dying, but at the same time, it's like, I have no family. That's kind of the look that I saw in his eyes, like, I don't have family. Like, and that might be the reason too why he doesn't say anything to Sanosuke. He just goes on and tells him, all about the Kenkaku-heki. They're coming. They're going to Hakodate next. Just be careful. Watch out for Hakodate. And that was it. That was it. And that might be the reason why he dies with no regrets. He's smiling. He has that moment with Sanosuke where he's like, I wish you well. I wish you the best of luck. So, yeah, it kind of is an eye-opening scene where he asks him about his last request, because it does beg that question of the family. Does he have one? And it goes back to when he talks about the harsh upbringing of the children in the clan, how they have to survive and train, and only select members are chosen to, keep training. It did open, a little understanding of Ono's childhood and his upbringing. So that was interesting. But wow, no family. It just hit me, because when you look at his eyes, it just seems to me like that says, I don't have any family. Like it just looked like it to me. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't, but it does feel that way. Okay, the next thing. Now, there is one person that does know the Kenkaku-heki's main base. This person is a mysterious man who escaped the base, and the last mission of Honda, Honda, the last member of Kenkaku-heki to be killed. His mission was to track down this mysterious man, and ironically, I think it's the same one that the Yaminobu was going to have Asahi track down, which could be Koshijiro Kamiya. And that would make sense, because the envelope that we saw in chapter 1 actually says Ken, which means sword. So we knew that it was a mission from the Kenkaku-heki to the Yaminobu, and we know there's an alliance there, and that photograph was of Koshijiro Kamiya. So they know what he looks like, right? So they still need to track him down. That could be the mysterious man that Ono reveals to Sanosuke that knows the secret, and that's why they need to eliminate him. And he said, if there's anyone that knows it, they are eliminated without exception. So that is a serious concern for Kenkaku-heki right now, because there's someone out there, maybe Koshijiro Kamiya, Kaoru's father, that knows the location of the base. So that's interesting. That's a good discussion question, by the way, that I might go further on. But yeah, I noticed this and I wanted to, point it out. So that's pretty interesting. Okay, the next thing. Kenshin and Kaoru are reunited. So we get the scene where Kaoru is like, over here, Kenshin, and she shows him the new house. They have a new house. What's interesting about this house is that it is actually an architect, a well-known architect. And this architect is Frank Lloyd Wright. Let me say this right. A new house is designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. He's this famous architect, a Western architect, and it's absolutely beautiful. You see it. And what's interesting about this, it fascinates Kenshin. He's like looking at Kaoru like, I don't know whether to see if this is eccentric or beautiful. And Sanosuke is like, I've never seen anything like this in my life. So both of them are like in awe of this place. And Kaoru's just like, I don't really care about the details, while Sanosuke and Kenshin are just like going all about the details. So that was really cool. But the point is, Frank Lloyd Wright is a real architect, and his work is very well known. So I like the idea of him bringing, that to the chapter, kind of like a cameo of Frank Lloyd Wright, and we see it in this chapter. So I want to show you some of his work, and actually this looks exactly like the house that Kaoru shows them. So take a look at this. Okay, guys, so as you guys can see, that house is pretty much the one that Kaoru states, that has kind of like the meadow going out into the meadow. It kind of goes up and it's very unique. It's very unique. It's beautiful. But anyways, that is the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright. You can look him up. But yeah, it's really beautiful. And the interior is also beautiful. And like I said, Kenshin and Sanosuke are just like, wow, they're just in awe of it. They just keep talking about it, asking Kaoru all these questions, and she doesn't know. She's just like, it's very beautiful, right? I don't need to know all the details. But yeah, it was very interesting how they used, the real architecture design for the chapter. So yeah, that was pretty cool. Like the cameo of Frank Lloyd Wright. Okay, the next one. Sojiro is with Kenji. This was great. So when Kaoru opens the door, she's showing Kenshin around. The Juppongatana are just like chilling there, and you see both Kamatari and Cho, they're just like lounging around. They're like, yo, welcome back. Where are my souvenirs? So it was pretty funny. And then of course, behind them is Sojiro, and he's just sitting Indian style, and Kenji is on his lap, and he's got a dango, so we know he gave him some sweets. It was just a great scene. And then Sojiro says, we didn't just barge in here. We asked the residents, for permission, right? And it's almost like he's asking, or he's kind of confirming that the person that he kind of bribed or kind of helped or asked was Kenji himself. So that was interesting as well. And Kaoru's like, well, so technically, yes, we did get permission, because technically it's not really her house, right? She had Tomoto, kind of set it all up. So, yeah, but anyways, it was interesting, and it was great seeing the Juppongatana again. So, but anyway, that was a pretty funny scene. Okay, the old man that Asahi meets in town is actually a Kenkaku-heki member. This man is the man who has a family. Now, this is in chapter 9. Here he is. He's the guy that can basically block that bullet. It kind of like rotated. Yeah, this guy. And he basically is a very caring, kind man. We see Asahi asking him a question, and he asks a question back. So I kind of like that idea. But not only that, this guy is one of the Kenkaku-heki, which is interesting because, Ono, we kind of see he's a little different than what we thought too. And this guy has a family. He's caring. It actually goes to his code name, which we learn is Ego. Ego, and the kanji is for love or caring. So that makes sense. It goes back to his character. So that's interesting. I liked it. So we do get more on that Kenkaku-heki member. So that was interesting. And also Asahi, we get to see her, she is like just an ordinary girl. Even though she grew up in, the kind of the mercenary lifestyle, we get to see her, in an everyday kind of situation where she's just asking someone for help. So that was nice too. Yeah. So, okay, the next thing. Kanzato gathers the Kenkaku-heki. Now, Kanzato is the one with the, kind of the face mask. Obviously, all of them have the mask, but he's like the one of the main leaders. He's the crazy eyebrows. He has crazy eyebrows. Anyways, he's one of the main leaders that talk to their master, and he's gathering the Kabato prison attack squad. He's also gathering other members. Yeah, so that was interesting. It's at Shiryokaku, which is kind of a battlefield from the Battle of Hakodate, so that's pretty cool as well. But it also showed that there's progression. They are moving forward with their plans. They're planning something. But what I found interesting is that the Kabato Prison Attack Squad, their commander is not in charge, which is interesting because remember, he wasn't mentioned when he was a commander. Where is he? Is he one of those in the background that's not even shown? Yeah, so that was interesting. But yeah, I like that. Alright guys, so moving on. Number 12. Asahi appears to be happy around the Juppongatana, which is very interesting. Now, we obviously know Originally, she went off to be a rebel for the Juppongatana. Obviously, the former Juppongatana, but like the actual rebel group that was in Ashitaro ex-con. She was a part of that, so she joined that group. So it does make sense, but I found it interesting that, we see Cho and Kamatari walking in front of her. We hear them both talking and how they want to go to RuroKen, which is like a famous restaurant in Hakodate, which is also interesting. It's actually a famous restaurant. So another one of those real life places you can visit, RuroKen. You can look it up. It's Western food, so pretty cool. Anyways, Cho and Kamatari are talking, and I think Cho is the one that says he wants to drink. Maybe it's Kamatari, I'm not sure, but I know someone says they want to eat sweets. That has to be Sojiro. But if you look closely, Asahi is behind them, and she's got this little smirk on her face. You can just see that she is happy to be around them. She says that she prefers the Juppongatana the most. And yeah, that's kind of interesting because we see that in this chapter. We see kind of, and I mentioned this before, that, we see more of her, she feels like a more of an ordinary girl rather than this mercenary. And I like that. I like, more of, the ordinary girl, Asahi. And we saw that when she talked to the Kenkaku-heki member. Obviously, he's a nice guy, the old man. But here we see her genuinely happy being around the Juppongatana, which is nice. I like that. Okay, back at Goryeo-kaku. Okay, what's interesting about this, Kenshin and Kaoru are both talking. They're like, okay, well, Saito's fighting off in Sapporo. While they're fighting, let's take a rest, Kenshin. Let's take it easy. And right after that, we see Goryeo-kaku and we see Byakuya wakes up. We see his eyes just light up. And of course, his long nap is over. So Byakuya wakes up. Obviously, the rock man is there to welcome him. We learn from that that Byakuya has an unusually high blood volume, which explains why he was able to, withstand all of those attacks and why he took those attacks from Kenshin. The Kuzuryusen, all those Kuzuryusens that hit him and he was bleeding out, he did that for a reason. That wasn't just him being crazy. He was actually doing that so that he could release his true power. He mentions that Byakuya had not released Sekiriki. He mentioned that to Sanosuke and to Asahi that he had never used it. And so that's interesting because we see in this chapter that the reason why he never used it is because he needs to bleed out a significant amount in order to use it. So in order to regulate his Sekiriki, which is called brilliance or brilliant power, he has to bleed out, in order to be able to use it. That just begs the question, how strong is Byakuya? I mean, think about it, guys. He took 3 or 4 Kuzuryusens point blank. He survived. Not only did he survive, but he seems like he's even stronger now. So that's pretty crazy. You see like this aura surrounding him, like he's just full of power. So it's crazy. And it's another good discussion question to think, who is going to fight him? Obviously, Byakuya has great respect for Batosai. He wants to fight him. So you would think that they would have a rematch. But honestly, I think a great match would be him and his master, Master Hiko versus Byakuya. Imagine 2 large, bulky guys against each other showing their full power. So it would be a really cool fight. I want to see how strong Byakuya's Sekiriki really can do, and what is his secret power. He obviously has another trick up his sleeve. So yeah, but anyways, that's just something to think about. It's a good discussion question to talk about in the next video as well. I kind of talked about it a little here, but anyways, I wanted to mention that. So, but yeah, that was really cool. Okay, on to the fight. So we see the clock tower, and I mentioned this earlier. So we see the clock tower in Sapporo. We see Nagakura, we see Saito, and we see Hyobei. Hyobei, the skull masked member of Kenkaku-heki. Hyobei is the skull man, the skull mask. So we see him. Not only does he have a skull mask, he's got bones, kind of on his shirt, and he's also got bones on his hilt of the sword, which is pretty cool. He's got dual weapons, so he's got two swords, and on the hilt there's like a skull on the hilt. So like right here where he holds it, like right where the blade is at, you see the skull coming out. That's really cool. And then when you see the other thing, you got like this blade, but it actually comes out almost like an axe, like a pickaxe almost. And he's got two of them. So one of them's going this way and one of them's going this way. And I mean, that looks like it can do some serious damage. So that was really cool seeing the dual wielding of Hyobei. That was really cool. And I like how he's like, both of you wolves, I'll deal with both of you wolves. He refers to both of them as the wolves, which we know, wolves of Mibu, right? The Shinsengumi. Both of them are former members. So I like that. I like how, you got that whole history thing. And of course, you got the idea where Hyobei is basically winning the fight right now. You got Nagakura with a bloody eye. You got Saito. He's holding his shoulder, which we know he broke during the battle with Byakuya, which I'm going to share with you right now. In that fight, this is where he's holding his shoulder in that fight, where basically he breaks his arm. He shatters his arm. So we definitely know that's not healed yet. And yeah, you just get that feeling like, oh, they're losing. This is interesting, like they're fighting a losing battle right now. But at the same time, there's going to be a strategic move coming here soon between both Nagakura and Saito, because they fought alongside each other more than once. So this is going to be very interesting, and I can't wait for it. Okay. The next thing, Nagakura, like I said, he looks beat up, but Saito has a broken sword. He has a broken sword. Now, what's interesting about this is that the last time we saw him, he also had a broken sword. Okay? This is the scene where he's fighting against Byakuya. He refuses to give up, and you see that broken blade of his. It looks almost the same one as in this chapter. Now, I'm not saying it is the same exact blade, because, I don't think Saito cares about a sword per se. He uses it as a tool, right? But he's not, like, sentimental about it, I love this sword, that's not Saito, He broke it against Kenshin, he just tossed it aside, right? But at the same time, we have seen some vulnerability in Saito. We've seen him down and out. We've seen him with the hurt shoulder, the broken arm. We've seen him in, these situations where it's kind of like desperation. So I do like it. But at the same time, is it that same sword? Is he that hard-headed to use the same sword again? Or did Nagakura give him another sword? Or where did he get the sword? Because he just has a sword. We just assume that, maybe someone gave it to him, he picked it up. But he kind of was being hard-headed and, kind of BSing, saying, this sword can't be replaced. And he's never said that before, right? He just tosses a sword and gets another one. But it does beg that question, because there was all that history behind it. Maybe there is some, maybe it is important to him. But I honestly think that maybe, it's just a sword. To Saito, it's just a sword, a tool. I don't think it's sentimental to him. But it would be interesting if that blade is the same one, because you see the same place it's broken, like literally in the same place. Like this part of the sword is snapped in the same place in this chapter. So it's not just like the whole sword's broken, it's like halfway broken. It's the same way. So yeah, anyways, I noticed that, and really cool. Also, Saito mentions two other dual-wielding samurai. This is where he says, whether it's Musashi Miyamoto, and he mentions a location where he fought, in history. And then he mentions Takeo Hattori of Abura no Koji, which was an incident with the Shinsengumi. And he states that doesn't matter where you are, I'm going to cut you down, or who you are, I'm going to cut you down. So I like that whole aspect. He's always showing that he's a tough guy, serious, but at the same time, he refuses to give up. I like that aspect about Saito. But these two swordsmen are very famous. Musashi Miyamoto, obviously, he was a dual wielder, just like Hyobei. So that would mean that's the real reason why he mentioned it. Not because he could beat Musashi. No, I don't think that's what he was saying. Musashi is a dual wielder, and so is Hyobei. So Hyobei is like Musashi in that regard, that they both use two swords, right? And Takeo Hattori, I believe, of the former Shinsengumi, he also used two swords. He was a dual wielder as well. So the reason why he mentioned both of those is because they relate to Hyobei because they were dual wielders. And it doesn't matter if they have one or two swords, Saito is going to cut them down, is basically what he's saying. So I noticed that, and that was very interesting. But I like the references to Musashi, to Takeo Hattori. You got the historical aspects as well. But, just the badass Saito, just doesn't want to show, like, his true emotion, just wants to kick ass and kill them all. Cut them all down. Okay, the last thing. I noticed that Nagakura has two swords, and I've noticed this throughout. This was in chapter 14 when they first meet, him and Saito. He has two swords, and they're on his belt. He's only shown to use one, but he has two swords. So there's one of two things here. It's either one, he gave the other sword to Saito, which probably not. I don't see Saito accepting a sword from him. Or two, maybe, now this is a maybe Nagakura also knows how to use two swords. That would be freaking epic. Can you imagine? Especially because he has a smile on his face. He's like, well, this isn't good. Since old times, dual wielders have been known to be strong, and he's got the smile on his face. So I'm thinking like, oh, he's just going to pull out his other sword, and he's like, you know what? I know how to use two swords too. And the reason why I mention this is because in chapter 11, which is interesting because he's fighting against Sojiro, when they lock swords, he has this special technique. It's like an interlocking thing. He calls it Sanrendosai. And this is where the swords kind of clash and connect with each other. This is where he breaks kind of like the momentum of Sojiro. And the fact that they're crossing swords like that, and that he's able to, kind of negate that power of Sojiro, it kind of makes me wonder that maybe he does use two swords as well as one sword. You know what I mean? Like, that would be very interesting. We've never seen Nagakura actually fight besides that one with Sojiro, so maybe it's a possibility. Maybe we're going to get to see Nagakura fight this Hyobei, and Saito's going to be there, in the strategic manner, helping him out, and they're both going to fight alongside each other. But that would be very interesting. What do you guys think? A dual wielder against Nagakura coming out and revealing that he also can dual wield. That would be freaking awesome. Or maybe he just tosses his sword to Saito and, he's got a new sword. I don't know. Either way, it'll be really cool, and I feel like this fight in Sapporo is going to be very interesting, intense. I can't wait. Really good stuff. So, anyways, guys, that's been my review. There will be a discussion in a week and a half or so, probably around May 3rd. So it'll be 2 days after the new chapter. But yeah, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next one.